Hello, everyone. Welcome to the unofficial first podcast episode of What's Your Wild Creative.
All right.
It's happening. No pressure. This may end up out to the public on an actual podcast platform. Might just end up on YouTube. Might just end up on social media. But Sarah and I from Badger Archery are sitting down and we're chatting about all things archery, all things women archery, all things whatever we're going to dive down.
We're making it up as we go.
Exactly. But there's never any shortage of conversation when we're hanging out. So I'm going to let Sarah introduce herself, talk about the shop a little bit, how she got where she's at, and then we're just going to let the conversation roll.
Yeah, so I'm Sarah Pfister. I own Badger Archery in Dillon, Montana. I got into archery when I was 12. I got a bow for Christmas. Absolutely was in love with archery. Started basically living at the archery shop that was in town that was owned by a lady. And she asked me at like 14, like, hey, do you want a job? Well, I was pretty excited about that and worked there all through high school. They went and did tournament archery and drug me along. And so I also really wanted to get into archery hunting. So I spent a lot of time whitetail hunting as a kid and just really loved both target archery and hunting. And I went to college, got married, had kids. My husband says, you just need to start your own little archery business. Well, any archery shop owner knows that you're not necessarily doing it for the money, you're doing it because you love it. I had a full-time, good job, paying job, and my husband finally got me talked into giving it a whirl, and I took $2,500 out of my retirement, which is not enough to start an archery shop very clearly, but just kind of started doing it on the side out of my garage for several years. And then in 2020, right before COVID started, I found a location in town that would have a suitable archery range, which was a thing that I wanted if I ever got a shop in town. And so I found a location that we could have an archery range, and we have a range set up for 24-hour access, which was, I thought, a really neat thing to be able to offer. And kind of scraped every penny I had together to get open, and we just keep growing every year. And we expanded our shop a couple years ago into a bigger retail space as well, in addition to our existing space. And it's been a giant learning curve, but I loved every minute of it.
It was pretty cool witnessing the couple times yesterday, and I think there was a couple weeks back when that couple came in and they were both buying bows. And anytime I see you interacting with the customers, I know it's like authentic, real passion, and you're just like, call me, text me. The two guys that were in yesterday were non-residents and here rifle hunting, but decided to come in and buy some bows. Mm-hmm. And I think you told them like 10 times, call me if you have any questions. And the first moment I stepped foot into the shop here, it had that feel of like very comfortable, very welcoming, non-judgmental space of come in, ask your questions, and it's cool. It's refreshing to see in an archery shop. And so
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's something that's really important to me, is being, providing excellent customer service, but also just being able to help people. For me, I love doing this. Selling archery equipment is how I try to pay the bills, but I just really love helping people with their bows. So for me, that's something that's important to me. I have, when I go to other towns, I love to go into other archery shops and just just go in there. I usually don't even have something that even has an archery brand or anything like that on there. And I can't tell you how many of those shops I've walked into with my husband, and they either don't talk to us or they talk to him.
Yeah.
Or, and for me, that was something that I established pretty dang quickly, is that I want to be very welcoming. And, archery is a very diverse crowd of people, and you want to try to understand those people and what their apprehensions are about coming in, and, trying to make people feel welcome, because it's kind of like going into the gym. The hardest thing to do is just step through the door.
Right.
So I really wanted my shop to be welcoming, and I've been grateful to be able to have a couple part-time employees, and that's like on day one, that's the most important thing. I'm like, we want to make people feel welcome. You might not have the answer, or you might be busy, but we're at least going to acknowledge that somebody, when we're really busy, we're going to acknowledge that somebody's there. We want to set, good customer expectations. Hey, we're going to be happy to help you, but we might be 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Talk a little bit about, let's just dive into the archery stuff, and we'll just take
absolutely.
the topics as they come. I'm thinking ahead to next month. We have ladies archery classes that are starting. Talk a little bit about those classes. Hopefully we have this up on YouTube before then. But if not, those classes are going for, I think, 3 weeks in December. Yes, 3 weeks in December. And then after that, talk about a woman's setup versus a man's setup, because I hear so many times women saying, "Oh, I tried to pull back my husband's bow and I couldn't do it." That already is stopping them from doing it.
Right.
Well, there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
let's start by talking about this ladies archery classes that we've got coming up as one of the things you offer here at the shop.
Sure. So we offer ladies classes, kids classes. All of those things have kind of grown organically. I really love teaching archery, and there's a huge demand for people learning archery. And so as a shop, it starts to get really slow in November and some of the off months of the year. And so for us being in a small town, we've really had to think outside the box as far as how we want to grow our business and be successful. And honestly, those classes are such an important thing to be able to provide to people. So like our kids classes, we're in the middle of some right now, and we have some more starting in January. We offer a 6-week class. We provide all the equipment. Ages 5 on up are welcome. And we cover the fundamentals of shooting. It's a great chance to find out if someone's child likes archery before parents go spend money on equipment. And archery is something that you can do for life. It's something you can do with your family. You can hunt, you can put food on your table. I mean, it's such and I see archery do more for kids, ladies, men, anybody. I do see it do more for them than just slinging an arrow down range. I see it as, it builds self-confidence. With kids, I see it builds a lot of patience, persistence. So there's a lot of skills that can be gained from doing archery that are beyond just setting an arrow down range. We all love setting arrows down range. That's why we do it. It's fun. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot to be gained from archery as a recreational activity. So like our ladies classes are basically the adult version of our kids classes. We're going to cover our fundamentals of shooting, and just some basic information too for ladies wanting to get into archery. I think part of getting into archery is, establishing what your goals might be. So, you may not have interest in hunting, and that's okay. And, you might not have a really big budget to work with. So those are kind of some of the questions that we can kind of answer and kind of figure out what's going to work well for people. So,
yeah. I'm looking forward to those classes. And it was so cool to see the kids down there. One day you were like, "Who of you wants to hunt?" And I think one of the 6 kids raised their hand, but the rest of them were just kind of like, "I think this is a really cool after-school program that my mom signed me up for." And your term, "wipe the ketchup off the cheek," and seeing them with all of their follow through, I was like, that's genius. It's so simple, but it's so genius seeing them I'm like, oh, these look like little professional archers already.
Yeah. And, with kids, I mean, even adults, it's learning what analogies you can give them to help them get them in the form that you want them to. If you're telling them to move their scapula towards their spine, they're not, it's about trying to make things approachable for people and, make it fun.
You had a successful archery season this year. Got a couple critters down with your bow.
I did.
What are you shooting?
So, this year for hunting, I used a Dart and Sequel 31 all year. I shoot more weight than a lot of ladies do, but I've also shot archery a lot of my life. I hunt with about 56 pounds, and I have no issues with that being enough. And I have some friends that are in the 40s, and that is okay too. So it's really about what a lady is comfortable with. I guess to talk about hunting, I guess I got to go to Texas in May. That was a lot of fun. I harvested a black buck and a feral pig, which that was really, really interesting. It's much different than hunting in Montana.
Yeah, more like blind style or
yeah,
spot
it
and
was
stomp.
elevated stands.
Mhm.
Honestly, like if you have some financial ability to be able to go do something like that and you're a new hunter, I think it's a great way to start because your shots are, you were asking a lot to have a shot over 20 yards.
Mhm.
And it's a target-rich environment. There's lots of animals. You don't have to be in great physical condition. So honestly, if somebody wants to get into hunting and they have the financial means to do so, it's not a bad way to start. I mean, I think we go out here hunting in Montana in public ground and get our butts kicked. And
Yeah.
I mean, we all need some of that. But at the same time, if you do want to get into hunting and you're not quite sure where to start and you have the financial means, something like that's not a bad opportunity. But
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. So
Yeah, as a guide, I'm always telling people, for example, the outfitter I work for, they have self-guided hunters and guided hunters in there at the same time. And a lot of time these self-guided hunters come out and they don't really do the research.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are like, we don't know what we're doing. And so they're picking our brains on what they should be doing different, what they should be looking for. And by the end of the week, they're asking about guided hunts. And I always tell them, if you are wanting to learn, and if there's something you want to get better at, and if you're willing to invest a little bit of money in it, go do a guided hunt somewhere.
Yeah.
Do your research, make sure it's a reputable outfitter. Not to bad talk outfitters, but there are some, and I've worked for them, where they're not necessarily the greatest. But find a reputable outfitter that has good reviews, they've got good permits and things like that, and go do a guided hunt. Whether it's hunting in Texas, sitting down in a ground blind where you don't have to worry about the navigational part of like navigating mountains for your first time. I tell a lot of the ladies that we teach, go hunt BMAs, because a lot of times you have self-service, it's pretty easy walking, so you lose that like intimidation factor. And so, yeah, sort of agreeing on what you were saying, like if you have the financial means to be able to do something like that, and it's something you want to learn and get better at, I absolutely recommend it from a guide's perspective.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this. Do you find that people, is it their equipment that's not prepared? Is it them physically not prepared? Is it not having any idea what they're doing with playing the wind? Like, what do you see as the biggest struggles when people go on a self-guided hunt that are maybe not as experienced?
Self-guided hunts, along with also the guided hunts, it's going to be the physical capabilities. People don't realize when you come out to Montana, and it was the same thing in Colorado, you know, you're at elevation. When you're coming from California and you're coming to, 8,000 feet, you can't train for that fully. There are some ways to train for it, but you can't train for the lack of air. And so when people are physically beaten down, they're mentally then beaten down, especially by like day 3. And I always see it day 3, it's like the lowest low, and then magically something will happen at the end of day 3 or day 4, and they climb back out of it. So the physical preparedness, along with the mental part, is really tough. But just people don't do their research a lot of times. People don't know how to e-scout, and so you get a lot of those self-guided guys who are like, what do we even look for? It's like, well, it's archery season, so those elk are going to be in the shade, in the shelter, they're going to be near water, and they're just like, oh, it's like the basic things of research.
Yeah.
Researching like wild game habitat, elk habitat, navigation. Take a course on e-scouting so you can, but yeah, definitely the physical aspect is the hardest. And they'll be like, we hiked 8 miles today, and it's like the biggest feat they've had all year.
Yeah.
And
I don't see I see them dragging their butts in here, exhausted by the 3rd or 4th day, but I get a lot of guides in here with, people with broken bows and, all those sorts of things. And like, there's definitely some things that people don't, that they should be thinking about. Like, you spend a lot of money to come out here, and, your bow should have good strings.
I had a client where his string busted off his bow while we had a bugle and elk running into us this year. Luckily, he had 2 bows, and he was so down on himself. And I'm like, hey, you've got another bow. Like, your intuition told you to bring 2 bows. He got super lucky. Jesse does it all the time. Like if we go to Hawaii, he brings both of his bows.
Yeah,
you know.
it's not a bad strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, but definitely whatever bow you bring, make sure that, you know, your strings aren't 5 years old, you know? Have your shop look at your bow, make sure it's in good working order and everything, and like your field tips are going to fly different than your broadheads, and I mean, most people that are experienced of archery know those things, but at the same time, like, it's a huge, you put so many resources into coming out, even if you're doing a self-guided hunt, you put so many resources into getting here and trying to be prepared physically, and your equipment and everything, I mean, is important. I get, you know, little things like don't leave loose broadheads in your case.
Exactly. So let's say we're heading out for a hunt in like a month's time. What are some things we should be doing with our equipment to make sure that it's in working order? Whether that's the tune, the strings, talk a little bit about that.
You know, I think for one, make sure your strings are in good shape. If you don't have the confidence to look at it, have your shop look at it. Also, the other thing is, you know, shoot your broadheads and make sure that they're flying good. And if they're not flying good, talk to your shop, or, you know, obviously if you're a customer here, come in and we'll help you out. It's a little more than, sometimes you see the little guides that'll say move your rest. There's more to it than that. And modern bows do have some tuning features that allow us to get things better without having to do radical movements to our rest or those sort of things. And honestly, half the time it can a lot of times be somebody's form. So, you know, and don't be afraid to ask, like, hey, how does my form look? Because there's a lot of, like, facial pressure, your grip, there's a lot of things that you can be doing as a person to, you know, shoot a lot better. So, but as far as, like, prepping for a hunt, I do think if you have a backup set of, when you get new strings on your bow, if your old strings are not completely trashed, keep your old set as a backup. So if something crazy happens, like your string getting cut with a broadhead, that those strings don't weigh anything. You can put them underneath the foam in your case. And if you have a wreck, you can get, if you don't have a backup bow, so if you're not going to have a backup bow, if you don't have a backup bow, if you have a backup set of strings, worst case scenario, you lose a half a day or a day getting to an archery shop and getting that backup set put on. And I hope it never happens to a person, but it's there if you need it. Because I see several of those a year where people get excited, heat of the moment, and they go to knock an arrow and they touch their string with a broadhead. So that's one thing that can happen for sure. And just make sure you have, you know, plenty of arrows, plenty of broadheads, you know, because sometimes, I mean, you know, it's like, oh, I only need 2 arrows. Well, sometimes things just don't go as you plan. And so making sure you have plenty of arrows. I've had the wide variety of things happen with people. I've had, you know, people come out here and all their fletchings fall off their arrows. Well, if they'd been shooting their arrows, they probably would have known they had a problem. But it was one of those deals where the vanes weren't prepped properly at the archery shop that he had them done at. Got him refletched, got him good to go, but he lost a day in the field because his vanes fell off his arrows. So making sure you're shooting and prepared, and being prepared for anything, I think, is important. I think shooting year round is important. And that'd be a great thing to maybe discuss next is, like, you know, we have the off season. A lot of people are rifle hunting right now in Montana. And I've had the luxury of filling a few tags, so I'm not really out there right now. But anyway, it's wintertime is a great time to make big changes in your equipment and, you know, necessary maintenance and all of that. Like, sorry, I'm tangenting.
Keep tangenting. That's what this is for.
My term.
Yeah.
Do not go to your archery shop 1st of July and ask for strings.
Yeah.
Because, you know, any reputable string builder, their turnaround times a lot of times can grow to 4 to 6 weeks sometimes. And it's not just the strings, it's your archery shop starts to get busy. So if you need new strings on your bow, try to do it between the months of, let's say, November and May. I'll just throw that out there as and I guess season dependent on where you're at, but try to get that stuff done in the off season. Your archery shop will appreciate it because they're pretty slow and they're going to have a lot more time
Yes, to
To
pay
help you.
attention to that detail, to get the
Yes.
good service you deserve,
Yes.
and, come in and, get a new string, they get your new peep in, you might have to do some new sighting in, and they don't feel rushed to be able to do that.
Exactly.
I got new strings on my bow in, it was like April, and it was great timing, because summer
Yeah.
rush hadn't happened yet. And then we would go in the summer, and it's just chaos in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want my bow tech to be able to work with me, be able to like go in and not feel like they're everywhere else.
Yeah.
They're having to work with 5 other people at one time. And it's such a great way to spend the off season. The last 2 years is the most I've ever shot, but especially this last year, I have come to realize what they mean by the zen that you get, the meditation you get from shooting. I've heard people talk about that in the past, but my form was horrible. I was shooting, I suppose less weight than I'm shooting now, but I had so much anxiety when it came to shooting. I would get sore in places you should not be sore, and every single time I would shoot, I'm like, is this the time I'm gonna get hurt? Like, my form was not great. It's that classic arching my back and pulling with my elbow down low, and just like so much anxiety. And I couldn't shoot more than like 10 arrows without like being super shaky, because I wasn't doing it right. And so finally I said enough is enough, and I dropped my poundage down to like 40 pounds, and I just like retaught myself how to shoot. Did it during the off season, so I had plenty enough time, and just slowly, like a few pounds at a time, worked it back up to 50. And now, the other day I pulled that bow back at 56 or something pounds, and it felt really good. I made that jump from like 50 to 56 because the proper form is there.
Yeah.
And I just see so many people, men and women, pulling back their bows, and I'm just like, oh, you're gonna hurt yourself. Oh, like, almost cringing, like, oh,
Yeah.
because I know what it feels like to like. I'm sure most people aren't aware of it. Like, I knew my form wasn't good, but I was just too lazy, and I was like, oh, it's gonna take too much work. Really, it only took a few months, and if you do that in the off season, and I did it, spring through early summer, and then by the time season came around, I was dialed in. And now when you have bad form and you're trying to pull back on something and you're shaking, it's really hard to pull that bow back.
Yeah. The other thing I watch too with people, and I have the luxury of getting to watch a lot of people shoot, and I feel like that has made me a better coach, and I have noticed little things, like when I make a correction, I've noticed how it improves other things that people don't even think about, like just proper draw technique. I see people on the internet talking about that, and what I've noticed, if you can draw your bow with proper form, which we're not on a video, right? Well, I guess we are, but if you can draw your bow with proper technique, there's like your shoulder position and everything. Like when people come up like this, they will end up with some pinching in the shoulder. So, like, archery shouldn't hurt. If archery's hurting you, there's possibly something you're doing wrong. And when you do make those changes, you brought up a really good point. If you do make major changes to your form, be prepared to dump your poundage, maybe 10, 15 pounds, because you're using different muscles, and you're not used to the movement, but you'll build back up very quickly. So, people tear rotator cuffs, all sorts of those kind of things, and it's worse to be sidelined by that than to try to push yourself to shoot too much poundage. And I'm not picking on guys here, but I see, it's usually guys that are, oh my gosh, I can't draw 70 pounds, I can't elk hunt anymore. We've literally had that conversation, and we have to remember that these are modern compound bows, and the energy that we're getting out of a compound bow is so much more than a traditional bow. And, I guess this segues, you were wanting to talk about ladies' setups, trying to have your bow set up in a way that's going to work well for you. Like with, ladies, we know we're not drawing as much poundage, so, like, I like to shoot a skinnier diameter arrow because it's going to penetrate better. Some broadheads have, like, a longer blade length, and I like that for the lighter poundage setups, because if that arrow doesn't pass through, it can stay in there and continue to do damage. So those are a couple things that I like. But the most important thing above what number your poundage says is it comfortable? Because 3 or 4 times a year, I have that person that goes to draw their bow back on an elk. They've been practicing, everything seems okay, it's a little hard for them, they're maybe pushing things a little bit, but you get that adrenaline going through your veins. And I had it happen to me when I was a teenager. I had a big buck walk below me, it was kind of cold, and I couldn't draw my bow. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. You're wearing a pack, if you got a pack on and it's cold, I mean your muscles, everything is tight. So the poundage that you're pulling for hunting probably should be the max poundage that you can pull. It should be a bit lower than that. And being comfortable is more important than pushing our poundage up to the limit. So of what we can do.
Yeah. I see ladies ask the question all the time through different forums and pages on, I'm looking to get a bow, what do you guys recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that one's a tough one because a lot of bows out there. So, you know, our budget comes into mind first and foremost. If somebody wants to get into it, don't feel like you have to spend $1,300 on a bow or more or less or whatever. So there's a lot of decent they're okay package bows that you can get into it with. And you can totally go hunt with a package beginner bow. So I know I'll just sit like a Diamond Infinite Edge or a Bear Legit or whatever. And those bows will do the job. Now, that being said, when you have one of those bows that's very adjustable, you do give up some performance. So that bow is going to be a little bit louder, it's going to have a little more vibration, it's probably going to be about 20 to 30 feet a second slower than a higher performing bow at that same poundage and draw length. But if it gets you into archery, great. Having something that fits you is the most important thing. So sometimes when we're new at archery, most ladies when they get into archery, and most guys when they get into archery, guys a lot of times 50 to 55 pounds is where I find that they're pretty comfortable. Ladies, it's usually 25 or 30 pounds. Now that varies greatly depending on the person's just individual strength. But I've watched big tough guys with big muscles, 55 pounds was all they could handle. So starting at a poundage is comfortable. So when we're talking about bows, some bows that are higher end don't always have a lot of poundage range. So, maybe you buy a bow with this, if you want that higher end bow, maybe you get a 60-pound limb to start if you're a guy, or maybe you get a 50 or even a 40-pound limb if you're a lady. But having something that you're comfortable with is important. And again, if your budget is, you buying $500 package bow, don't let that stop you, but you may find that you want to upgrade in the future. So having a bow that fits you is the most important thing. And I'm in the business of selling archery equipment, right? But if you get a used bow, there is a market out there for used bows. If you're looking at a used bow, I think it's a good idea if you don't have the confidence or quite understand everything about what you're looking at. Have an archery shop look at it, and hopefully they're honest enough with you that they could tell you, look, this bow isn't going to fit you, or okay, they're asking $300 for this used bow. Well, it needs new strings, and the poundage might not work for you, and the cost of the strings is more than the bow is even worth. So sometimes financially, and I'd say more than sometimes, a lot of times, people are actually financially ahead to buy a new bow. Sadly, bows are a little bit like computers. They change so fast over time. Every year you don't notice huge incremental changes, but if you look back 5 years or 10 years on bows, that's where you start to see big differences in bows. So, and I guess just to segue that too is and I guess I'm talking a lot to my followers too, but if we're talking outside of that, find a mentor, archery shop, whatever, that is knowledgeable and that you're comfortable with. If you walk in the door and you get...
there's a lot of podcasts out there on wellness and how to be a better person, how to be a healthier person. And I think archery is one of those things outside of the gym and outside of nutrition that teaches you so much about yourself. Absolutely. Let's just say being an elk hunter and having to run around the mountains. Not only are you having to be diligent in your training, where you're teaching yourself discipline on shooting your bow, putting the time and energy into that, right? To like not only make sure you're shooting, but that your bow is performing.
Absolutely.
You know, it goes into all of your gear and your training, and then the lessons that you're going to learn on the mountain. Like,
I think it's learning any craft. You know, people like for me, for example, fly fishing. I have no idea what the heck I'm doing, and I'm not too proud to admit that. But it's I have people that think that they can get into archery in a half hour and be ready to go. There is so much to it, and there's so much to anything. But you know, as a hunter, I mean, I think kind of also establishing what your weak point is and being honest with yourself. Mine is fitness. I go to Topo Fitness. I've been going there to work on my fitness a little bit with Cade Bethke. A little shout out to him if you're looking to get in better shape. He owns the gym there, and we have this running joke that we need to like tape a elk to the treadmill so I have motivation to go after it.
Exactly.
Because there's a new gear that kicks in when there's an animal in front of me.
Yeah, yeah. I had a client this year that just really struggled to, well, he made great strides from last year to this year, but his mental toughness was still, he was struggling with it a lot.
Yeah.
Like his body was able to go further. He was still going pretty slow. But that mental toughness, he was just like, I feel like you're leaving me in the dust. I feel like you just aren't taking breaks. I feel like this and that. And then I get in my head about this. And I told him on the last day, I said, hey, we have a big hike ahead of us today. But there's elk up there. Like, if we get to those elk, you know, we're going to be on them. And I said, and it's going to suck hiking the hill. We've had a long week, lack of sleep. You know, your body's getting tired. You're feeling drained. But I want you to think about your kids. Like, as we're hiking this morning in the dark, under all the stars, think about your kids. Think about the example that you want to set for them. Make them proud of you. Think about your wife. Think about all the adventures you want to go on with your kids. You know, you're talking about hunting with your kids in Texas, and you want to take your son out to Montana or to Wyoming or somewhere and do an elk hunt. Like, keep putting in the work. You know, bring your mind to those positive places, and pretty soon we'll be there. And it worked for him. You know, later that day, he was like, oh my gosh, Draya, it worked. I was just thinking about my kids and how much I love them and about my wife and how beautiful our family is. And I forgot about how tired I was.
Awesome.
You know?
It's type 2 fun sometimes.
Type 2 fun.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. We, in our group of ladies that hunt together, we've had sometimes where you got a nasty hike or something, and we have our own ways of dealing with it. But
yeah,
it's we had a code word that when you were tired, you were allowed to say the code word. The code word was everybody stop and take a break.
Yeah.
Sometimes slow and steady wins the race.
Oh, definitely. I see it in the guide world all the time where, you know, other guides just want to like run to the top of the mountain. Well, hunt your way there. You know, there's going to be critters on your way up there.
And if you're not in the greatest shape and you're patient, you know, there's other ways to hunt than just hiking your face off.
Yeah, exactly. Still hunting's my favorite. I love still hunting, especially once you start getting some snow on the ground and you can really glass through the timber and follow the tracks. It always makes me feel like a kid wandering through the forest.
Absolutely.
Chasing that feeling inside. So I think you and Hannah should chase some deer.
Yeah, we're going to try it. So, yeah, I think she'd be excited to go. So, my friend Billy is going to go with us too. So, we're going to go Sunday. Should be a good time.
Yeah, ladies' day.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're chatted out? What else do you want to talk about?
Man, we've covered a lot of things for not having any idea what we're going to talk about.
Rabbit holes.
Yeah, and I guess we'd love to know what people want to chat about, I guess, would be a good thing too. Like, if you have a topic you want to talk about, we're, I feel like I'm sometimes a jack of all trades and a master of none, but I have, you know, some tournament archery experience, I've got hunting experience, on an archery shop, you know, like, but I can't tell anybody that I'm the biggest expert on anything out there in the world, but I know a bit about a lot of things, and I guess my area of expertise, probably more than anything, is like the bow setup and tuning side of it. But I also, hunt a lot. So
Cool. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see where this goes. If you have questions about anything in particular, if there were certain topics we've talked about today that jogged your interest, shoot them in the comments. Shoot Sarah a message on Instagram or her website. I think the phone number's on there. But we're an open, non-judgmental. Wow, struggling. I promise there wasn't any Baileys in my coffee. Non-judgmental space is what I was trying to say. So I think the slurring words is a sign to
we should
press
end on a
stop
good note.
recording. So thanks for tuning in to the unofficial first episode of What's Your Wild Creative, and have a great day.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I feel like we did okay.
Oh, we crushed it.